What is magnetism? Hello guys, welcome to Keys to the Truth. In this video, we will take a closer look at what magnetism really is. In doing so, I invite you to notice the keys that we will be using. First and foremost, we will use the keys of observation of our senses, as well as the key of thought, the key of logic, the key of reasoning in its simplest form. The key of reasoning, logic, and thought, as any other key, can be corrupted. So that's why we need to use several keys in unison in order to triangulate our way towards the truth. So, what do we really observe when we're noticing magnets in action? What's really going on, and what are the fundamental underlying principles? Well, that's a tough one. And it's taken me quite a while to figure it out. I have to disclaim that it's not me figuring it out. It's me humbly asking the Creator to share His wisdom on the subject so that He can show us how He made these things, how He makes these things work, and therefore we can glean some understanding. That's not me being pretentious, that's just me telling you how it is. So anyway, what do we really observe when in magnets in action? Magnets in action, okay. In its simplest form. And I asked some children, some teenagers, and I asked some kids, and it's a little challenging because even from an early age they're already telling you a lot of nonsense, and so we have to try to look at things through our children's eyes, through our inner child's eyes, and from the most basic fundamental level of perception. So what we're seeing in magnets in action is, and please comment if you do not agree with my logic, but I'll give it a shot and you tell me if I went wrong or if I went right, okay? We're seeing basically two objects attract each other, right? When we see magnets, we notice that there's an attraction about them or a repulsion as well. Now, it may be between two magnets, and it may be between a magnet and a particular type of material. Not everything that we notice in our everyday life has magnetism, right? And right now I'm just going from observation. I'm not going about, I'm not going still into experimentation, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But so at the simplest, most basic level, we're noticing there's an attraction between two magnets or a particular substance, a particular material, and a magnet. That's it. Attraction or repulsion of these objects. I wouldn't even call it a force because we don't know if there's a force there. We might get to that conclusion, arrive to that conclusion later, but right now the most important thing is to not jump to conclusions without looking at all the evidence. And even if we do arrive at conclusions, we have always to be flexible in the sense that we would need to revise these conclusions if we find conflicting evidence. What makes them attract? I mean, that's the question right there. How is it acting? The phenomenon, the description of the phenomenon, we have to keep very simple. Is there an acceleration? Is there a motion? Well, we do observe a motion. So there is a motion involved. There is a motion aspect involved. You could even call it an acceleration because that motion is going to imply or involve an acceleration, a velocity. So there's a velocity, there's a motion of matter, and maybe even an acceleration. We would have to, do all the calculations and set up the proper experiments. So calling it an acceleration is a stretch, but what we can see is there's a motion, there's an attraction, there's a velocity. Those things we can see with our own eyes, okay? Or we can sense them with touch or even with sound. So our senses would be telling us that. So let me be repetitive to a fault. I wouldn't call it a force. There might be a force, but I wouldn't call it a force until we do further, measurements and further analysis. Okay, which has to be very thorough, very rigorous, that can withstand, criticism and skepticism of the highest degree. But we're talking here about sensical things. We're not talking about nonsensical garbage like you see in modern science, like you see in modern academia, like you see in schools. Why do they have to teach kids about science and so-called science and pseudoscience and physics and chemistry since elementary and since high school? What do they care, right? They don't care. Do you think they care about the welfare of your children or their education? They don't give a rat's behind, okay? So again, that's another key to the truth. The opposite of what they say, the opposite of what they do must be true, all right? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to delude us from the basics, from the fundamentals. The phenomenon we can see, we can observe, we can witness. But the explanation, that's usually where they get you. That's usually where the lie is involved. What's causing this at the root level? What's making this happen? What's creating this reality? What's manifesting this reality? That's the key that we need to discover, all right, in our explorations. Another thing that's patently obvious in regards to magnetism and magnets is that there's nothing connecting these two materials, okay? You could say except air, but they still work in a vacuum, so not even air, not even the crystals in the air. So there's nothing connecting a magnet and another magnet, and they're still working at a distance. There's nothing connecting a magnetic material or a ferromagnetic material and the magnet, and they're still causing the action, the movement, the velocity. That's also very important as far as magnetism goes. It's an action at a distance without any medium. They even work underwater. They even work with air, with no air. They work in a vacuum. It's a phenomenon kind of like light, which does not need, again, a medium or a wave or a particle. Now I'm going out on a stretch here because I'm mentioning a particle, but if it is working in a vacuum and there's nothing in between the two magnets or the magnet and the iron or the cobalt or the nickel, whatever ferromagnetic material you're using, then that's the mystery. And therein lies the answer to our query, to our consultation, to our question. It's something that everybody asks themselves initially, and then you get the BS answer from fake science, and then you believe that's true because as a child you believe everything to be true that you're told by adults. Like, why would they lie to you? But that's where the key of the adult, we have to protect our inner child or our real child from the lies. And once you see that, then the key of inverse of lies of the establishment, then then it's easier for you. When you default, your initial reaction is like, okay, they're lying to me, and then I have to find the truth, because God's not lying to you. God's laying it out for you, and it's out there for you to discover, for your soul to learn and to grow and to evolve. Remember, evolution is spiritual, it's not physical. There's nothing connecting them, and yet they're causing motion. And everywhere else, basically, that we look around us, to exert a motion, you need to have some point of contact or something acting on some other thing. But in magnetism, that's one of the distinguishing characteristics of it. It's acting at a distance. It's like that actor Einstein, who claimed, it was just a poser, a figure, and not a real investigator, not a real scientist. Einstein, he was just a figure. And he was, he said that quote though, spooky action at a distance, where they admit, if you dig down deep, they admit they don't know. And I'll show you all that in a minute. Look at the magnets closely. Play around with magnets in your own time. Be sure to stay away from very strong magnets, and consult an expert before you start playing around with stronger magnets. But like the little everyday, fridge magnets and things like that, you can play around with them on your own, and you can see they exert an action, a movement, a velocity at a distance. You could call it a force. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a force. I would stop short of that and call it an attraction or a repulsion, whatever the case may be. So, guys, in your explorations, I really invite you to use this method. Okay, remember, I'm not here to necessarily show you these conclusions. These are like secondary. The more important thing is the methodology, so that you can implement it in your life and decode reality in this way, and find more things, okay, that perhaps I could never find. So we really need to train ourselves to fall short, in a sense, and to say, I don't know. Say it with me. I don't know. And that's a level of humility then. Humility is also an infinite curve of sorts, where, like you can't say, oh, I'm so humble already. No, you have to be more and more and more and more. Just like wisdom, just like anything else, okay? We have to fall short of saying in the initial observations that, oh, this is it, and there's this, and this is what's going on. No, we have to just, this is what I've seen, and that's it, no more, okay? And then open yourself up for the grace of God to show you further things. So you can't be a know-it-all where okay, I know it all, and then you have half of it is BS, or that's where the devil gets you, because then he's going to feed you a bunch of nonsense, right? And that's how they get you, all right? So that it's important to realize that, because they're going to feed you. Okay, you want to know? You're so arrogant that you think you can know everything. Well, here's all this BS. Fill her up. There's a lot of things that we can't know, and there's a lot of things that we will never know, and that's by design. But I used to think that we couldn't know what light is, and God showed that to us last year, and I shared it with you. And I've been tackling this issue of magnetism, and I thought, maybe we'll know, maybe we will never know. But that's the trick. When you're in that state of unknowing, that's when the realizations, the inspirations from the divine can reach you, okay, from the source. So it's really important that you observe, and that you're quick to stop yourself, and that you're not quick to reach conclusions that may be wrong, and that you're also able to revise said conclusions at a later time if that revision is required. Okay, so that's really important, guys. So now let's look at what explanation the establishment gives us, what they tell us, okay? And then I will debunk that for you, and then I will give you the explanation that I have found. A magnet is said to be a material or object that produces a magnetic field. This magnetic field is invisible, but is responsible. Okay, so there's an invisibility factor as well, and that's something that I failed to mention when we noticed it. So we have to be very comprehensive in our observations, but then we have to not jump to conclusions. So there's a fine art there. There is an invisibility factor as well, okay? The invisible hand. Now let's see, what else do they tell us? Lodestone, that's like the natural magnets that are found naturally occurring in the earth. Remember, there's no such thing as natural. That's everything is supernatural and created and magical. But we'll get to that. So a body having the property of attracting iron and producing a magnetic field external to itself, okay, specifically massive iron alloy that has a property artificially, it could be artificial or not, something that attracts, okay, So attracting iron, and iron will be the most ferromagnetic material. Now, there's a continuum, and this is kind of outside the purview of this video. I'll touch upon that in other videos, but everything has a magnetic susceptibility. Everything, absolutely everything. All materials, even paper, even wood, even plastic, anything. So it's not just iron. What happens is that iron is the one that is attracted the most. Okay, but everything is either paramagnetic, which is attracted to the magnetic source, or diamagnetic, which is repelled. Okay, and there's even a state that's called antiferromagnetic. Okay, that's usually artificially created. So we'll get to all that in other videos, but for now, the ferromagnetic materials, iron being the one with the most attraction, and then we have your nickel and your cobalt, and there's a few other ones that, depending on the temperature of all things, they have a different magnetic attraction or susceptibility. Force generated. You see how they're already feeding you things here that we're not certain about, like force, okay, generation, aligned atoms. Like, where do you get the atoms from? And that's complete garbage, the atoms, because atoms and molecules don't exist. Electrons don't exist. So, I mean, these are things that we have to be careful with, all right? Magnets are rocks or metals that create an invisible field around themselves. That's not an explanation. Those things are just descriptions. So we have to be careful to distinguish between a description and explanation. So magnet produces a magnetic field. Duh. Okay, you're just defining it, but that's right. That's fine. But you're not explaining anything. Okay. Ferromagnetic materials. Okay. And then we have permanent magnets, and then we have electromagnets. Okay, which has a current that passes through it, through the coil, and then it's gonna exhibit magnetism. So you could be saying, well, keys to the truth, this is where you're wrong, because there's electricity and that creates an electromagnet, and then you're wrong because you're saying electrons don't exist. But this is not a video about electricity. It is intrinsically linked with magnetism, but so is everything else. So I'm not going to make a 10-hour video. All right, I'll do videos on electricity at a future time, but and I'll give you the explanation that is required for now. Okay, and the basic interrelationship between them. Okay, this video is long enough, so let's stay the course. All right, magnet. The property of attracting. Okay, I agree with that. Okay, and here it says which ones. Okay, magnetic force. Great. Lodestone. Magnetite, which is occurring in so-called nature, which is supernatural. The etymology. Okay, let's look at the purported etymology, which is wrong. Why? Because they always lie. Okay, so always, guys, immediately. From the Greek, they're saying it's magnes and lithos. Lithos meaning rock, magnes, well, meaning great, usually. It doesn't say that here, but that's what it means. It's coming from the French. They're giving you all these things. It's from the Greek, magnes, lithos, stone from magnesia. I mean, these things could all very well be, but they're intermediate. They're not the root of the etymology, the root of the Word of God that created this reality of the magnetism. Remember, everything's created by the Word of God. So I'll show you the real etymology here towards the end of the video, in the key of Sanskrit, of course. Magnet, they don't have a lot here of information, so that's kind of suspect, in my opinion. Very suspect. Anyway, how does magnetism work? Magnetism is the force. I wouldn't call it a force. It might be a force, but I wouldn't call it a force right now without doing some experimentation myself. Exerted by magnets when they attract or repel each other. I agree with this part. Yes. Okay. Magnetism is caused by the motion of electrical charges. That's a stretch there. Because is electricity moving? You could argue that it's not even moving. Is it flowing through the wires or is it not flowing through the wires? So again, guys, we have to train ourselves to stop short of the railroad track so that we don't get run over by these lies, okay? Every substance is made of tiny units called atoms, wrong. Each atom has electrons, wrong. Particles that carry electric charges. Well, we can just substitute this for crystals. Remember, we know about crystal magic and its effects on manifestation. The word manifestation itself means a festival of crystals, of precious crystals. Mani means crystal, precious gem. So this is you can substitute these lies for the key words, and then we have a better answer. So it's crystals that have electric charges. You could say that. Yes, you could say that. I would agree with that. How do metal, and then we're getting to the actual, then that's going to help us. So you see how the key to the truth of crystal magic and crystals making up everything around you. The crystals make up the air around you because that's a solution. It's a fluid solution of crystals. Your hand, your eyes are made of crystals. Your nose is made of crystals. Your computer monitor is made of crystals. The display is made of liquid crystals. Everything absolutely that we see is made of crystals. The sun is made of sodium crystal ions that are in a state of plasma, and they're being energized, and that's being called oxygen. That's what we breathe, and that's what allows for fire and movement in this universe. The only thing that apparently doesn't need oxygen to move seem to be magnets. So that's a mystery. And if you have an answer for that, please let me know in the comment section. Because that one's still eluding me. But anyway, let's continue.
Magnets, it goes over a bigger distance than ordinarily. And there it has to do with the fact that in iron, all the electrons are spinning in the same direction. They all get lined up, and they magnify the effect of the force until it's large enough at a distance that you can feel it. But it's a force which is present all the time and very common, and is in a basic force of almost. I mean, I could go a little further back if I were more technical. But at an early level, I just have to tell you that's going to be one of the things you'll just have to take as an element in the world, the existence of magnetic repulsion, or electrical attraction, magnetic attraction. I can't explain that attraction in terms of anything else that's familiar to you. For example, if we say the magnets attract like as if they were connected by rubber bands, I would be cheating you. Because they're not connected by rubber bands, I shouldn't be in trouble. But you'd soon ask me about the nature of the bands. And secondly, if you were curious enough, you'd ask me why rubber bands tend to pull back together again, and I would end up explaining that in terms of electrical forces, which are the very things that I'm trying to use the rubber bands to explain, so I have cheated very badly, you see. So I'm not going to be able to give you an answer to why magnets attract each other, except to tell you that they do. And to tell you that that's one of the elements in the world of the different kinds of forces. There are electrical forces, magnetic forces, gravitational forces, and others, and those are some of the parts. If you were a student, I could go further. I could tell you that the magnetic forces are related to the electrical forces very intimately, that our relationship between the gravity forces and electrical forces remains unknown, and so on. But I really can't do a good job, any job, of explaining magnetic force in terms of something else that you're more familiar with, because I don't understand it in terms of anything else that you're more familiar with.
Much to learn, you still have.
So you see, guys, you heard it directly from the horse's mouth. Richard Feynman, arguably one of the most renowned or the best physicists of our time, modern time, saying flat out that he doesn't know or that he can't explain how magnetism works. So then you have these lesser entities trying to tell you how it works. Well, if the top guy is saying he doesn't know or he can't explain it, how is your 5th grade or 12th grade teacher claiming that they are explaining to you how magnetism works? So you see, it's all a charade or a charade or a ruse. Let that sink in, and by all means, do your own research on this subject. Do not repeat a word I say. Remember, stop repeating things. That's been weaponized against us because we have a propensity to repeat what we see or what we learn. Okay? So stop repeating that, this or that and the other, and just analyze stuff and ask God, the source, the creator, for guidance, all right?
So certain are you? Hear you nothing that I say? No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
So let's continue. Here, you may have noticed that materials that make good magnets, blah, 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 unpaired electrons that spin. I'm going to debunk that in a few minutes here, like the whole electrons thing, okay? Physicists have some understanding, however, some phenomena that underlie magnetism continue to elude. Oh, wow, no, really? I thought you knew everything. I thought scientists were like these priests class that we couldn't, contend with, that we couldn't dare question them, because they have, holy knowledge that we're not allowed to, and we just have to take their word for it. Like, come on, give me a break, all right? So what causes the magnetic force? It's a consequence of the electromagnetic force, one of the fundamental forces of nature, and it goes by the motion of charges, whatever that means. Two objects containing, if you don't understand something immediately, boom, that's a red flag. It's hard to understand, it's a red flag. If you can't explain it intelligibly to a 5-year-old, that's a red flag. Two objects containing charge with the same direction of motion, blah, blah. What? Again, I'm just gonna drop that. I mean, I could like make the effort here, and I can do the math all day long with you guys, but that doesn't mean that it's understanding. You see what I'm saying? Here we go. People finally admitting the physics of ferromagnetism remains a mystery. Oh, really? Oh my gosh, you're telling the truth. Did you like hurt your tongue? Is it bleeding? The existence of magnetism is a visible manifestation of quantum. Oh my God. So now they have to, because their lies ain't working anymore. They're not cutting the mustard. Now they're resorting to this new trick up their sleeve, which is quantum mechanics, which is another ton of crap. They come up with all these things because it's a house of cards, right? It's built on lies upon lies upon lies. And that's the thing about teaching the young children these lies in school and at such an early age. It's gonna corrupt and taint your understanding and your perception, the filter of your perception, so that if your foundation is corrupted and it's incorrect, then everything else is going to be incorrect. And this is one of the key mysteries of the magic of the Maya of the Creator, of God. Okay, remember, it's not a he, she, it. God is beyond those things. Masculine and feminine are divine aspects of creation, but the Creator is above all of that. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then if you buy into the pseudo-scientific fake scientism, BS explanation, then you're gone. Then you're gone. Then we'll lose all our engineers, we'll lose all our architects, we'll lose all our mathematicians, all our physicists, because now they're delusional. They're psychotic in the sense that they have this grain of a lie inside their perception that will not allow them to see the magic that is creation, the magic that is reality. Okay, and so this I think this is where we need to make a stand. Magnetism is magical.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
So magnetism, here they say, arises from two types of motions of electrons. And they're saying it like it's real. And I thought they just told us that it's a mystery and that it involves quantum mechanics. So you see how the liar needs to be changing their tune all the time when it's a lie. They have to tell you, like, there's one truth but so many lies. So they have to feed you lie after lie after lie, because when you get to a point, you realize it's not true, and that they don't know, and that we don't know. Okay, so we have to take refuge in the one that knows, in the one that made things, in the one that made all things. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, it's just another attempt to further enshroud or occult the magic of reality, because everything that happens around us is 100 and 1,000% magical.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
I've been proving that to you throughout my videos. Do your own research, all right? You keep changing the lie and you come out with a new lie for a new generation so that they will still be deceived. That's their MO. Magnets work perfectly in a vacuum. So if they're working in a vacuum, where are the particles? Where are the waves? Okay, what's being waved? Yes, magnetism will pass through glass. Okay, how is magnetism? And here it's an easy debunk. I'm debunking them with their own lies, and that's why I use Google, because it's like you're cross-examining a witness in a murder trial. Did you do this? Did you not do this? Where were you at this time? Were you not? And they're giving us conflicting evidence, conflicting statements. Yes, magnetic fields will pass through glass. Well, I got news for you. Glass is an insulator, isn't it? So if glass is an insulator, plastic is an insulator, how are the electrons getting through? How are the electrons getting through?
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Then through the glass and back to the electrical contact. Right now it is connected, but electricity does not flow because glass is not conducting at room temperature. If we bypass the glass, you can see how the lamp turns on. Now I will use a torch to hit the glass and then see if the lamp goes on. Okay, as you could see, the lamp went on when the glass was at sufficiently high temperature, becoming a conductor of electricity. That's all for today's video. Thanks for being.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
They're missing the beauty of the innocence. That's legit. We really are that stupid. I don't know how magnets work. You know what I'm saying? I was playing with my son. You know what I'm saying? My 6-year-old son, watching him freak out over some magnets. You know what I mean? And if you look at the world in a positive way, and you look at pet cats and dogs and all the things we consider miracles, I think it's a beautiful song. I think there's a lot of people like me that don't know how magnets work. And even if we do know how magnets work, they're still amazing. You know what I mean? All of it. All the lyrics are real. There's a lot of people like us that look at things for what they are, a miracle. You know, the mountains, the clouds, the sky, you know, everything is a miracle. We're blessed. This is like a giant playground, and we're given freedom to do whatever we want with our life. You know, people walk around, my life sucks. Change it. Like we're given this opportunity to live this life in this great place. You know, if you like it hot, go somewhere hot.
So guys, you see that clown, that literal clown, has a point. I don't know them. I've never seen them. Sorry about he was a little explicit, but there's people that notice the reality is different than what we're told. And, you know, he may be working for the opposition, probably. If they're famous, somehow they get access to occult information, Masonic information. And that's even a key to the truth as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everything they say is real, but they know some stuff. So when we notice that the other side is saying some stuff, then we have to like take it with a grain of salt, take it into consideration and filter it, and then, you know, check out everything else, our key of children, our key of observation, our key of scripture, our key of etymologies in Sanskrit, so many other keys. All right, guys? Let's now start. Magnetism is not. It is a magnetic field by definition, but it's not a field of electrons. It's a field of manifestation, yes, and it's a field of attraction, yes. Now, not everything will be attracted to it. Not everything. Some things will be attracted. Some things will be repelled. Some things will be attracted more than others. Some things are so subtle that you have to do the experiments in a very particular way. Anyway, so in our definitions, we have attraction, the act, process, or power of attracting. So there's a power, there's a charm, the action or power of drawing forth a response, an attractive quality, a force, maybe, according to this definition, acting mutually between particles of matter, tending to draw them together and resisting their separation. When you saw how the magnets artificially were being made magnetic, we have the process of electromagnetic induction. There's a current there of electricity that's involved, a field of electromagnetism, which is giving this property to materials that were already highly susceptible. So they're being inducted. There's a process of induction. Now, what does induction mean? The actual process of inducting, here we go. The formality by which a civilian is inducted into service, an initial experience, an initiation. So these are terms that are quite peculiar, guys. Check the word magic. Inference of a generalized conclusion. They're telling you, how electrical conductor becomes electrified. Okay. A magnetizable body becomes magnetized. Okay. And there's this whole thing about the hysteresis curve. And I don't want to get too technical on you, but there's a lot of properties for different materials, different crystals. The act of causing or bringing on or about. Very interesting. So what does to induct mean? To put in formal possession, as to install, to admit as a member, to enroll. Very, very interesting, guys. So you see how these are abstract concepts, metaphysical, if you will, that are being represented in the physical by the magnetism. Initiation, the actor or an instance of initiating, the process of being initiated. Rites, ceremonies, ordeals, or instructions, mantras, okay, if you will, with which one is made a member of a sect or society or invested with a particular function. This is very important, particular function or status, okay? The condition of being initiated into some experience or sphere of activity. What is a magnetic field if not a sphere of activity? You see how this sounds pretty crazy, but it is, in fact, what's happening. The abstract, the unmanifest, is becoming manifest by the power of the magic of the Creator. And initiate is to initiate, to cause or facilitate the beginning of something, to induct into membership by or as is by special rites, to instruct in the rudiments or principles. So it's an instruction as well. So just like light. So now we start seeing, behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz, a person who is instructed or adept in some special field, a magnetic field. Some special is somebody that's instructed or adept. So some materials have more instruction or are more adept at a certain field, a certain rite, or a certain organization within that field, within that magnetic field, sphere of activity. Affection as well. Magnetism is also an affection. It is a feeling of liking and caring for someone or something, tender attachment. So we're saying that magnetism is attraction. We can easily observe that. Now, attraction, a synonym of attraction is also affection, a moderate feeling of emotion, the feeling aspect as in pleasure of consciousness, and everything is going to point to consciousness at the end of the day, if you look close enough. Not for nothing, the first shloka or the first verse of the Shiva Sutras says Chaitanyam Atma, which is everything is consciousness. The mind of God is consciousness. The mind of the universe is consciousness. The mind itself is consciousness. The mind of the soul, the mind of God is consciousness. That's what it means. And we start getting into telepathy as well. Because how is the information being transferred from one magnet to another, or to the iron, to move or not to move? Or how does it know that the magnet's there? If there's a pane of glass in between and they're both inside glasses, how is it being transmitted? It's being transmitted telepathically. It's a communication. There's a communication first between the crystals telepathically. And there's also telekinesis. Telekinesis is the motion at a distance, the production of motion in objects without contact or by any other physical means. That's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what we're observing, the production of motion, okay, without any physical means. So you're seeing it. They first have to speak telepathically because there's no contact, there's no way they're communicating unless telepathically, and then there's a motion, a telekinesis. And now we're getting closer to the fundamentals and unraveling this mystery that is magnetism.
The metal shapes from the sand chunks using what else? A magnet. The molded pieces react like ordinary metal. They don't yet have magnetic power. Some are shaped like rings. Threaded onto a copper pipe, they'll be used in electric motors. They place the ring-covered pipe in a much larger tube. Then they center it by packing silica sand tightly around it. The sand will hold the rings in position during the next step. They seal both ends with concrete, allowing the inner copper tube to protrude slightly. Then it's into a different electrical furnace. It heats the tube full of magnet shapes until it's red hot. This primes them to accept an electromagnetic field which will be delivered by this metal rod. They slide it down the center of the copper pipe and clamp it in place. Water keeps the pipe from melting as they deliver a low voltage, high current charge in a cylindrical formation, important for motor magnets. They break open the seal. The process has left the ring shapes mildly magnetized, but most importantly, it's orientated the magnetic field properly. They grind away any rough edges. At this point, these magnets are pretty useless. But this machine will empower them. It delivers an electromagnetic charge to the metal, which magnetizes it. The establishment of that weak magnetic field earlier has laid the groundwork for this moment, ensuring that the magnetization is properly orientated. Now that's some serious magnetic muscle.
Into magnets. This is where they will hit it with a very high strength magnetic field of over 2400 volts and 12 amps DC. This is the magnetizer that we'll be using and seeing in action today as it's magnetizing these special arc segments to be used in a special kind of motor. Each magnet has been coated with a special color so that they can know which magnet goes in which place in assembly in this motor. With a lot of arc segments, they have to make a special custom magnetizing coil like the one she is using. The loud noise you hear is the capacitors discharging into the coils to charge the magnets. Notice in the inset that she has a foot pedal that she's using to activate the coils. These fans that you see blowing on the coils are used to keep things cool because pushing this much electricity through the coils generates a lot of heat. Watch the magnetizer and see how quickly it charges to over 2400 volts. Wow, that was quick. This is another magnetizing coil that they use for these small magnets. You can see in the second stack, they're already magnetized. You can see in the viewing film that this is a multi-pole magnet by looking at all the poles around the magnet.
How far has research progressed? Let's find out.
This is Masato Sagawa, the inventor of the neodymium magnet. He is currently involved in a national project to reduce the need for dysprosium.
It's used in the manufacturing of motors in hybrid cars, which are very promising, and a variety of electric cars. If we don't find a solution, then production will come to a halt. So, it's an issue for the government and Japan as a whole.
This is the new neodymium magnet that Sagawa and his team are developing. The key is in the size of the magnet's particles. This magnet's particles are roughly 3 micrometers. They're much finer than regular magnet particles, which are about 5 micrometers. The finer the particles, the greater heat resistance it has, even without dysprosium. The mini-magnets within the neodymium magnet particles are all facing the same way and have strong magnetic force. However, if the heat disrupts a part of the particle, then the disruption gradually spreads throughout the whole particle, and the particle loses its magnetic force. But if the particles are small, then even if some are ruined, the damage to the magnet as a whole is relatively small. The disruption of the mini-magnets are contained within the particle and do not spread to other particles.
So guys, if you've been watching my videos, you should have caught this right here. What are these? Come on, tell me. You know what they are. They are crystals. This is the crystalline structure under a microscope. This scientist is, researcher is doing is he's actually using smaller crystals, which he can then program. This is a drawing, this is a picture. Learn the difference. and then they give you their explanation of why it happens. That's not necessarily make it the case. That doesn't necessarily make this true. There's no little blue or red arrows pointing. Do you see the blue and red arrows? I don't see them. Okay, so we have to be super critical and know what we're looking for and try to, decode our reality. All right, so crystals and crystal magic. We're going to go into the crystal magic explanation, but I wanted you to see that it's there for you to see if you have eyes to see and ears to listen. It's not me making it up, alrighty?
You must unlearn what you have learned.
It's very important to note that all materials, all crystals have a relationship with magnetism. So we usually refer to the magnetic materials as these three: iron, cobalt, and nickel. However, those are called ferromagnetics because they exhibit that high degree of influence under a magnetic field. However, all other materials also have a certain behavior under a magnetic field. This is a table. This is the Masonic table of elements, and these are not really elements. These are products that have been made in so-called nature or manufactured by humans. Which substances are paramagnetic, that is attracted, strongly or weakly, and diamagnetic, which are repelled. So one of the most repelled ones is bismuth. Copper is repelled, silver is repelled, gold is repelled. These three are very, very key because they also have high degrees of electrical conductivity, and they have other properties, which I've told you before, are integral to the manifestation of energies and power. For example, copper is what we make most of our engines today from. But if you watch my video on how airplanes really work, you can see that the engines, not the jet engines, but the engines of airliners have nickel motors, and these nickel motors are also being used in the Tesla cars. So there's a lot going on here in this section. There's a lot going on. There's a lot there hiding in the silver and the gold. Now imagine if you would do a motor, induction motor out of silver or gold. I mean, you had enough money to do that. But that's precisely why they price them so high artificially in the markets, so that you do not have access to the amounts required to do proper experimentation with silver and gold. That's why they're so expensive. There's no other reason, because they can actually do stuff in the real world. This is not just theory. All right, palladium used for computers, semiconductors, silicon right here. So the intrinsical relationships with magnetism give these different crystals actual physical properties in the manifest world. Okay, guys, that's really important that you know that, because that's going to be an integral part, or some other videos that I'm going to do where I'm going to explain to you what gravity really is, where I'm going to explain to you what fire really is, and a lot of these other electricity is, a lot of these other things. And I mean, there's YouTubers out there, and there's channels out there who have hundreds, if not thousands of videos on these subjects, but they do not tell you what these things are. They just beat around the bush. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're shills. Maybe they're plants. Maybe they're gatekeepers. Maybe they have some idea. Maybe they don't have a definitive answer. Maybe they're given a script. I don't know. I can only tell you what I know, or what I don't know, or what I think I know, or what I think I don't know. That's it. And you take it from there. So for example, here we have bromine, and he's doing this researcher who's very, very smart, very good researcher, in my opinion. He's doing this test on bromine. And you can see how that it's moving. It has a very subtle, delicate effect with the magnetism, with the magnetic field. So, I mean, you don't have to have a gross effect for something to be real. You don't have to have something moving, you know. Here in this case, it's moving because it's arranged to be able to move. But, you know, you could regularly have a material that's not going to be moving, where you're not going to be seeing a visible effect, but the effect is going to be there nonetheless. So do not discount the subtlety with which the creator designs everything, right? There's a subtlety there. There's some things that are have a gross nature, a gross material nature, but some things are very subtle, and you have to keep your eyes open for those possibilities, lest you're adult, you remain adult, or you remain, a dummy. All right. So it's something to keep in mind. The subtlety. All right. Chlorine, we have chlorine here, is being repelled. He's using a very, very strong magnet, and he's using this arrangement so he can show you the effect. But even if he didn't show you, and you have a jar full of chlorine, it's still going to be it's going to be under an influence of the electromagnetic or magnetic field of the earth or of whatever. All right. So keep that in mind, guys, because that's gonna, impact the way the world behaves. Let's change pace and actually start sharing what magnetism really is, applying the keys to the truth, and the main key being that of calling upon the compassion and the wisdom of the Creator, so that in His compassion He shares His wisdom. Magnetism is, if you see, it's an arrangement. You see, it's an orchestration. It's also a memory, because these things are getting an instruction from the source of the magnetism. These particles are getting an instruction, these crystals, to arrange in a certain pattern. So there's a transfer of information, there's a command structure, there's a structure, there's a field, okay? There's also a memory, because it has to remember the field. You see all these things? Do the thought exercise here with me and corroborate it with your observation, okay? There's this arrangement. There might be movement, okay? There might not be movement. There's a want, there's an attraction, there's a need, okay? There's an affection there. There's an affinity, you see? So that is what magnetism is. It's a relationship. Just like light is also a relationship. Light is also a relationship between crystals of the magical matter that is made by the Creator. So if you haven't seen my video about what light really is and how it travels, please watch those. The source here of the magnetism, of the magnetic field, is basically telling the crystals around it that will listen, that have the higher degree of susceptibility, to do something. So it's a communication between crystals, it's an arrangement between crystals, it's a relationship between crystals in space. It involves a memory, it involves an arrangement, it involves an instruction to do or not to do something, okay? And to remember that. It also involves an affinity, an affection, a want, a need, to come together and to perform a certain action or to arrange in a certain manner. If you think about it that way, you can also corroborate it with the key of the language, and also with the key of word magic, both in English or any language and in Sanskrit, okay? So I'm going to show you how the language helps us corroborate what we're suspecting. And these are called ferrocells. You can research these ferrocells, and it's just gonna, show you, give you glimpses of the magnetic field, which is being shown here by the crystals. It's an invisible field. which manifests itself in the crystals, in the crystalline structures. Okay. Now, if you're thinking, keys to the truth, these are Masonic concepts. How dare you? Well, guys, if the Masons say the sky is blue, that doesn't make it their knowledge. It just makes it something they know, they happen to know it, but they didn't come up with it, okay? That's my point. So you have to be careful not to throw out the baby with the bathwater and dismiss important things just because, oh, the Mason said, you know, such and such. So what? I mean, you know, just take a second look at it, but do not dismiss it out of hand, or you're going to fall prey to a very simple reverse psychology tactics. So how do you say magnet in Sanskrit? Okay, let's go for it. Magnet in Sanskrit. There's so many words, right? Like with anything. But let's see which ones may shed some light on the subject. They call it Kumbhaka, Brahmaka, Akarsha, Akarshika, Mani. Remember, Mani also means a precious jewel, a precious crystal. So this word is already telling you that magnets have crystals in them, and I've shown you that as well. So the language, an ancient language, is coinciding with what this latest Japanese scientist showed us. You see how the keys to the truth validate each other? Ajaskanta, Akarshaka, Devakanta. Deva means divine or godly. Devakanta, okay, keep that one in mind. Ayomani, so they're adding this prefix here on the mani. Radna, Vajra Lohaka, Loha means metal. Canta also means to sing in Spanish, like she sings, ella canta, or it's like in the third person feminine, or it can mean an imperative when you're telling a second person to sing. Sing for me, please. Sing with me, please. Canta. Tu canta, por favor. You sing for me, please. Right there, that's telling you what it is, okay? If we go back to see the magnetic fields, is the magnet not telling the other crystals to sing? Sing for me, please. Dance for me, please. Do this thing for me, please. Do this particular arrangement for me, please. It is. It's telling them to do an arrangement, a musical arrangement in space. That's exactly what it's doing. So it's corroborating with the key of logic, with the key of observation, with the key of senses, and it's corroborating with the key of Sanskrit. Okay? Kantayasa, Romaka. Kanta also means your throat, with which you sing. Let's look for Kanta, okay? Here's written in the Devanagari script. Kanta means neck, like I told you, means husband, anyone beloved. Throat, with which you sing, okay? So a magnet could be thought of as a source of singing, right? You see how impressive that is? By heart. So the heart is singing, and you're, wow, this is amazing. I didn't notice that. You're going to notice here by heart how the heart sings and how the heart emits magnetism. This is unreal, guys. You can't make this stuff up. Okay? Memorize. It has to do with memory. Okay? That's also quite impressive. All right? And I'll show you why. Keep that in mind, because magnetism is also a love and it's also a memory. Kanta also means a lover, a loved, a desired, a charming wife. It's also the earth, a stone, iron, spring, the moon, beautiful, lovely, agreeable, wife, mistress, happy, pleasing, liked, dear. So you see how that coincides with what I was telling you about affection and induction, and how magnets are artificially induced with their affection. You can't make this stuff up, guys. You see how incredible that is? It's a memory, it's an affection, and it's also a singing. Okay, that's what magnetism is. Let's see what else. It's sound, it's a voice. The tree symbolism, you can't get enough of it. And going back to the world tree, the tree of life, Christ saying that he is indeed, the vine. And so all these things, guys, we have to keep our eyes open to find the clues, right? The lotus, the blossom of the lotus, which is used throughout the Vedic scriptures and all of yoga. Kantara is also a whole. It's a non-thing, talking about, mentioning there the incommensurability of magnets, because if you add a magnet to another magnet, they will become a unified field. If you cut a magnet in half, it's still one field. So it's a oneness. It's an ekam. The word for one is ekam. It's not one or uni. That's a lie. I'll expose that in another video. The real word is ekam in Sanskrit. So you can keep going here and you can find so many things, right, that will give you clues as to what things really are. And I invite you to decode through Sanskrit. You're used to probably decoding through numerology or decoding through some other astrology or decoding through some other things. But I invite you guys, start decoding through Sanskrit and you're going to find some bombs. I guarantee it. It is the language of creation, and you can watch all the videos that I'm doing on that. There's even people posting from Serbia and from Romania telling me that it's their same old language, that this language that they spoke there in ancient times, it's the same thing. They just pronounce it differently. And that's just incredible. Yeah, that's incredible and mind-blowing. How do we say memory in Sanskrit then? If you're keys to the truth, you're saying magnetism is memory. Tell me what the word is for memory. There's a lot of words for memory, like anything. But one of them is going to be smrti. Smrti, this root smrti, right here, smrti. Guess what? It's the same word as smart in English, all right? So this is not a video about Sanskrit, but I just want to point these out. Smart means you have a good memory. It's a smrti. It's a Sanskrit word, okay? And there you go. You can't make this up. And you see all these computer terms here? All these computer terms? These are new words in Sanskrit. And you're going to ask, well, how come there are new words in Sanskrit if it's an ancient language? Because of the way that it's formed. If you know what each particular phoneme means, you can build up new words as you go. And it's being used to program. Why would they do that? Tell me why they would bring an old ancient language into the programming of computers and quantum computers and AI. Why would they do that? Think about it. I'll do that on another video. I mean, it's hitting you in the face, and you need to realize it. All right. Dharana, it's a contemplation. It's a meditation. So a lot of the nuances here are lost in the translation. Here, I found it. So these databases are not perfect. All right. A lot of them have been scrubbed. A lot of them are being censored. All of them, they just don't have the capability. Sanskrit is just, it's pretty much infinite. I didn't find memory here. I didn't find the correlation with kanta, but I found it here, where it says kanta asti karoti. Kanta asti karoti means to memorize. So there is the word kanta. There is the word memorize, right? So kanta means also a memory. There you have it, guys. I'll take a screenshot. Boom. Take screenshots or write these down, because then sometimes people erase them. Act of memorizing something. Kanta asti karanam. There you go. An ancient language that's thousands or millions or billions of years old, or infinite, because this is the word of God. This is the word of creation. And it's corroborating what we're seeing in the behavior of magnets and the stuff around them. Now I'm going to do something that's really wild. I'm going to decode the word itself, magnet, through the key of Sanskrit and through language magic, word magic in English. You can do it in any language. And you cannot find the word magnet in any Sanskrit database. Why? Because they don't know it, or it's been scrubbed. But if we know the root phonemes, the root syllables, the root dhatus that make it up, and we look up what they mean, then we can reconstruct how this word really came to be and get past the fake Latin or the intermediary Greek root. Okay, so let's do it. Let's take a crack at it. So magnetism, magnet. This is how it would be spelled in Sanskrit Devanagari script, and I'm taking out the T, so it's magne, the root. This is ma, and here's agne. And if you break it down, it would be ma plus ag plus ne, and the T, which is a net. And what is a magnet if not casting a net? Okay? So already the English word magic is yielding dividends for us. It's casting a net. And you can see that. You can see that in, for example, in these ferrocells. Looks like a net. Just like the dream catchers of the ancient tribes here in North America, right? Does it look like a net? It looks like a net. So magnet, it's a net, but it's also a lot more than that. So when you add the ma and the ag, it becomes mag. That's a contraction that's very common in Sanskrit. So ma, ag, net, okay? And then, so here we go. Ma means so many things in Sanskrit. I could do a whole video on it. You could talk about that endlessly, but I'll do a quick, brief thing. And why I take so long on these videos, guys, because this is a proof video, okay? If it's just a glance video, I'll do 5, 10, 15 minute, 20 videos. But you can listen to this at 1.5 speed, or listen in different days. I don't mind, whatever you want to do. But a proof video demands proof. Demands rigorous proof, okay? And I'm not going to stop them short just for the sake of, somebody being pressed for time. Watch the video in different times. So anyway, ma means water. This is the symbol. It also means in Spanish mar, which means the sea, the ocean, the water of life, aqua vitae, the universal solution, the universal womb. Ma is also the matrika, which is the word of God. It's also the matrix or the matrix. It also means in Spanish la matriz, which means the womb. The womb where the man is born. The womb where everything is born. The womb and the man becomes the woman. Okay? This is pretty interesting. And then ma, if you reverse the M, it's a wa. So mater becomes water, or mater comes from water, which is mama, which is mother, which is mutter of Deutsch, madre in Spanish. Ma also means the moon, which is the so ma. And that's also where the word magic comes from, the original meaning of the word, not this corrupted meaning where you're doing witchcraft and you're doing sorcery and you're doing hocus pocus nonsense and praying to demons and entities, okay? That's the nonsense. That's the corruption. The original meaning of magic comes from God. So magic, it comes from Maya. And now I've told you what Ma means, and Ya, you know what it means. It's the Godhead. It's the source of all creation. And the Yi, it's just a grammatical declination of Ya, okay? You can see it better, appreciate it better in the Devanagari script, how it's the same exact phoneme. They just add the nuance of the Yi, okay? Ma also means time. It's the possessive first person singular feminine. In phonetics, for example, mine is pronounced M-A-I-N, mine. And mind is also pronounced M-A-I-N-D, all right? So how crazy is that? Ma also gives us the word to make, to produce, to create. Ma also means to measure, to mark, to prepare, to arrange, to form, to build, to construct, to make, to assign, to apportion, to show, display. And isn't that what a magnet is doing? Isn't a magnet arranging things in 3D space? Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if a magnet is not performing an arrangement in 3D space. Tell me if I'm wrong. By all means, comment, refute my arguments, refute these observations. I'm all eyes, I'm all ears, I'm listening. Tell me if a magnet is not making an arrangement in 3D space. So it's preparing, it's forming, it's building, it's constructing, it's assigning a particular arrangement. Okay? Is it displaying? Is it displaying or not? I want to hear you. Please comment. Send me an email, keystotruth@gmail. Bookmark my upcoming website, keystotruth.com. Let's keep going. So Ag is a symbol in the Masonic table of elements for silver. Why did they keep it in the Sanskrit? You tell me. Because they kept some other ones like potassium, which is Kali Ash. So they're telling you something there. They know something. So this AG comes from Argentum, and Argentina was named for the same reason, which comes from Argentina, which comes from Arjuna, whom is the main character in the Mahabharata word. Well, not the main character. He's a secondary character besides the Godhead, whom is called Krishna there. And don't get lost in the nomenclature, but Arjuna is the representative of humankind, okay? He embodies a great human being and what his capabilities can be. Like he actually wields a divine weapon, an astra, and uses it on the command of God, okay? So Ag means to move tortuously, to wind, to go, to approach. And that's also where we get the word Agni for fire. That's where ignition comes from Agni. So Ag means to move tortuously, to wind, to go, to approach. Right? So tell me, if the magnet, is it moving tortuously or is it not moving? Is it moving tortuously back and forth or not? Tell me. Right? So, and the ne is negation. That's where the word negative comes from. Ne, not. Right? It also means to make a fabric on a loom, interlacing threads of yarn to weave, to arrange in a proper manner. Oh my God. So, what are we seeing here? Is this not a loom? Is the magnet not a loom of reality? Is it not a loom of crystals? Is it not a loom in 3D space of matter? That's what a magnet is. It's a loom. Okay? You can't make this stuff up. And it's blatantly obvious once you cross the keys. You see? It's weaving the fabric of reality. That's what magnetism is. Telepathically and through telekinesis, okay, at a distance, magically. There's nothing Einsteinian, nothing Newtonian, there's nothing reductionist about this. This is all 100,000% God's magic. Okay, magical power imbued, you see, in the crystals, because it is crystal magic, right? So if you're thinking there's some sort of scientific explanation, well, you got another thing coming, because I just show you Richard Feynman telling you that he can't explain it, okay? So, I mean, other than that, your mind is gone and you're in denial. So, and I know, guys, I'm kind of talking to myself here, and I'm preaching to the choir. You are about, if you're watching this, you're like, in the top 0.01%, most open-minded, open-hearted, developed souls around in this reality. So I mean this in the most constructive, positive way. What I'm telling you right now about what a magnet is and what magnetism really is. So the point is, when some dumbass tells you, or some idiot tells you, oh, you don't believe in science, you don't think science is real, how is your phone working? How is your airplane flying? How, are you flying on an airplane? How is your car driving? Well, it's driving on magic. It's a disguised magic, and we're getting fed the crumbs, okay? The least minimum amount, so that we do not suspect and come to the realization that it is God's magic behind everything that's powering everything. You see? That's the long and short of it, okay? It's God's magic, okay? Acting, organizing, arranging, the love, the affection, the affinity, the induction, all these things are patently obvious. And once you uncover this truth, then, your eyes are open to see God around you and everything and every place in creation. Because not only is God the creator, he's also the creation. He's both things at the same time. And he's none of them at the same time. He transcends them at the same time. Okay? He is within you. He is within your heart. He is without. He's the world around you and the world inside of you. He is your soul. And he's your body. But he's also more than that. You see? So our technology runs on crystal magic. The crumbs, the very, very minimum, okay? So that we cannot use it against these stupid powers that be. They're not, I wouldn't call them the powers that be, the powers that should not be. But, it's a test, and it's a test. And, you live your life like that. Like every single instance, it's a teachable moment that God, he has to provide some sort of resistance, right? So that you grow into a beautiful soul. He's not just going to be like, oh, baby, come here. Let me hug you, for infinity. No, you got to work at it, buddy. Okay? Earn your spot. He already knows who's earned it and who hasn't. But you still got to pay your dues, okay? To him. Remember, God beyond him, her, it. But to the Creator. And not to the apparent evil of this world, right? You have to overcome no matter what, spiritually, right? So here, I'm showing you what's behind the curtain. I'm showing you underneath the hood of the car, okay, what's inside your computer, what's inside your cell phone. It's magic. It's telepathy. It's telekinesis, 100,000%, okay? So, ne also means to form by combining various elements or details into a connected whole, to construct, to be in close agreement or harmony with, to unfold oneself and cover a wide area, to spread the oneself. So, is that not patently obvious or what? Another way you can easily corroborate the magnetism is also memory, is your computer, your phone. How is the computer, how is the memory being written or being stored, if not by memory, if not by magnetism? Like even in credit cards or debit cards, the plastic cards, when you swipe them, it's got a magnetic strip, right? And that strip has been programmed electronically. The crystals have been programmed to maintain a certain arrangement, which is a state of memory. An arrangement, your body is a certain memory. Your brain is a certain memory. Your blood has a certain memory. Okay, so 3D space has a certain memory, and magnetism, no less, also is memory. All right, so think hard drives, think any kind of drives. You're storing a particular set of arrangement, And that's what magnetism really is. And that's why magnetism is widely used in the world of computing to store memory, right? So the elites know this, and that's why they're using it in this way, right? So this needs to become, general knowledge. You need to realize this, and then you can have actionable intel after you start having these realizations of what the potential really is for this world, okay? Because it has an infinite potential. We haven't, and we're being kept from it, all right? It's being kept from us, these realizations, so that we think, oh, it's finite, oh, there's atoms, oh, there's electrons, and all this BS that's complete and utter nonsense. So we don't have a full potential. Our lifespans are still really short, so that's a story for another time. But the potential is going to be realized spiritually. But yet, still, this world has so many capabilities that are not going fully manifested. So, keys to the truth. What can we do about it? Well, first things first. First comes the understanding, the level of consciousness, and then from there, from the basic level, fundamental level understanding, once you have the correct one and not the fake one, you can start taking that theory into practice and developing new technologies or new magic, implementations of magic for the betterment of this world and humanity. All right? So you go from the theory to the actionable intel. But first things first. Do keep in mind, guys, that crystal magic can work at a distance, meaning, and in locality. So it can work in things that are right next to each other, crystals that are right next to each other, crystals that are in close proximity or in the close vicinity of each other. But it can also work at a distance, both locally and non-locally. Meaning you could have a light source, let's say in New York, and if you have the correct synchronization of that crystal and another crystal in California or in Europe, you're going to be able to transmit the light no matter the distance. Okay? That's very important that you know that. So goes the same for magnetism, for heat, for movement, for any of the properties of crystals. So I'm going to have to expose that in another video. And that's how telecommunications work. All right. So keep that in mind. That's also why, for example, when you hug another person, you're realizing the incommensurability of magnets. So you're taking two magnetic sources, your heart and somebody else's heart, and you're placing them together. So when you're hugging somebody for love, make sure your heart connects with the other person's as much as possible. And the two magnetic fields become one. So that's why it feels so good and it feels so bad to be apart from the person that you love. If you've ever loved somebody, even a dog, your puppy, your cat, your kid, your wife, your lover, whomever, your father, your mother, your aunt, whomever, when you hug them and you're heart to heart, it's not just feelings and, the establishment trying to tell you that feelings are just superfluous and they're a construct of your brain. That's completely not it. It's not even hormonal. It's way beyond that. It's much more fundamental. The heart is not a pump, okay? And I can't say too much about it. You can research that on your own. But when people are dying of heart attack, guess why they give them electroshocks, okay? So there's your answer of what the heart really is. But anyway, the heart chakra, when you connect it to somebody else, again, you're taking two different magnetic fields and they're becoming one. Just like when you're taking two magnets and you put them together, they're becoming one. Okay, the oneness, the ekam is the correct word, ekam. Okay, they're becoming the center of manifestation for that particular field, and it does not need proximity. One of you can be in Africa, one can be in Australia, and you're going to feel the same attraction. If you've ever loved somebody like with all your body and soul, you know what I'm talking about. You can be anywhere, and you know if that person is hurting. You know if that person is loving you back. You know if that person is not loving you back, or whatever the case may be. If that person's in danger, all these things are real. Okay, 100 and 1,000% through crystal magic. Okay, so do not let the elite demon worshippers deceive you with their gaslighting. And I will go into greater depth in other videos. But guys, if you realize the potential of what I'm telling you in this particular video, what magnetism really is, and you start opening the door to having a framework to establish like the reality of what I'm telling you. Okay? All right, guys. Hope that helps. Thank you. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. I love you. God loves you. Have a blessed day.